Everything began on a peaceful autumn afternoon, the golden and amber hues of the trees shimmering under the soft sunlight. The air carried the sweet scent of fallen leaves, and in a sleepy little town nestled amidst rolling hills, where everyone knew each other's names and time seemed to drift slower than elsewhere, Sophie Jenkins sat by the window of her family's bookstore. She loved this time of year, the crisp air, the sense that the world was brimming with endless possibilities. The bookstore was her refuge, a cozy haven filled with the smell of aged paper and a faint trace of mulled wine. That day, as Sophie immersed herself in a novel, the faint jingle of the bell above the door pulled her attention. She looked up, expecting a familiar face, but instead, a boy she had never seen before stood hesitantly in the doorway. His name, as she would soon discover, was Alex Carter. Alex had recently moved to town with his mother, seeking a fresh start after his father's passing earlier that spring. They had left the city in search of tranquility, a chance to rebuild. Sophie couldn't take her eyes off him, not because of his striking features, though his warm brown eyes and dark, unruly hair were undeniably captivating, but because there was a quiet desperation about him that drew her in.
Can I help you?
Sophie asked, setting her book aside. Alex glanced around nervously, his hands shoved deep into his coat pockets.
I'm looking for something to read,
he said.
I don't know where to start.
Sophie smiled, immediately sensing he wasn't much of a reader.
Well, what do you like? Mystery? Adventure? Romance?
He shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips.
I don't know, what do you like?
And that was how it began. She handed him one of her favorite books, encouraging him to give it a try. He promised he would. A week later, he returned, asking for another recommendation, and then another. Before long, Alex spent most afternoons after school in the bookstore, and an unspoken bond began to grow between them. At first, their relationship seemed simple. They talked about books, school, and life in their small town. Sophie told Alex about her dream of traveling the world and visiting places she had only read about. Alex opened up about his father and how difficult the loss had been. He found solace in Sophie's quiet understanding, and Sophie found herself looking forward to their conversations, her heart fluttering whenever he smiled. Over time, their connection deepened. Sophie found herself falling for him, much like the leaves drifting from the trees outside. Alex, though more reserved about his feelings, seemed to feel the same. One cool December afternoon, as they sat by the fireplace sipping hot chocolate, Alex turned to her, his eyes tender and searching.
Sophie,
He began hesitantly.
there's something I've been meaning to tell you.
Her heart raced. She had imagined this moment countless times, but now that it was real, she was at a loss for words.
What is it?
What is it? She whispered. He hesitated, as if searching for the right words, then took a deep breath.
I think I'm falling for you.
Her breath caught. She had hoped, dreamed, but hearing him say it felt like a dream come true. She smiled, her cheeks flushing pink, and replied simply,
I feel the same.
They began dating soon after, and their days became filled with love and joy. They spent weekends wandering the woods behind Sophie's house, inventing stories and pretending to be explorers in a distant land. They danced in the rain, watched movies under starry skies, and exchanged stolen kisses in quiet corners of the bookstore. It was young love in its purest form, hopeful, radiant, untouched by the weight of the world. But, as life often does, things began to change. Sophie was accepted into a prestigious university far away after graduating high school, while Alex stayed behind to help his mother run their family business. The distance posed a challenge, but they promised to make it work. They exchanged letters, called each other every night, and visited whenever they could. Their love burned brightly, and though separated by miles, they clung to the belief that they were meant to be. Even so, the strongest love can be tested by time. Sophie's world expanded as she immersed herself in her studies, while Alex's remained the same. They still loved each other, but cracks began to form, small at first, then widening. The calls grew less frequent, their visits more strained. Sophie made new acquaintances and discovered new opportunities, and though she adored Alex, she couldn't deny that their lives were growing apart. One rainy afternoon during her senior year of college, Sophie sat at her desk, staring at Alex's latest letter. It was heartfelt and earnest, like all the ones before, but this one felt different. He had written about how much he missed her and wished things could return to how they once were. Beneath his words, however, lay an unspoken sadness, as if he too knew that things could never be the same. Tears welled in Sophie's eyes as she realized she felt the same. Their love had been sweet, beautiful, and sincere, but they were no longer the same people they had been when they first met. She loved Alex with all her heart, but she couldn't ignore the truth. They were on diverging paths. She didn't reply immediately. Instead, she spent days reflecting before finally sitting down to write her own letter. It was the hardest thing she had ever done, but she knew it was the right thing. She told Alex how much she loved him, how much he had meant to her, but that they needed to let each other go, to grow into the people they were meant to become. When Alex received the letter, his heart broke, but he understood. He had always known, deep down, that Sophie was destined for something greater than their small town, greater than the life they had imagined together. Years passed. Sophie traveled the world, just as she had always dreamed. She became a successful writer, her works imbued with the wonder and enchantment she had always found in stories. But no matter where she went or what she achieved, she never forgot Alex. He remained a gentle presence in her mind, a first love that had shaped her in ways she couldn't fully comprehend. One summer, Sophie returned to her hometown after years away. Invited to give a talk at the local library about her latest book, she felt a pull to revisit the places that had shaped her so profoundly. As she walked through the familiar streets, memories flooded back, afternoons in the bookstore, walks through the woods, the laughter and love she had shared with Alex. She found herself standing in front of the old bookstore, now closed, her heart aching with longing.
Sophie?
She turned, and there he was, Alex, standing just a few feet away. He looked different, older, but his warm brown eyes were the same, and when he smiled, it was as though no time had passed.
Alex.
She whispered, her heart swelling with emotion. They spent the afternoon catching up, sharing what they had missed over the years. Alex had stayed in town, taking over the family business. By the end of the day, as the sun set behind the hills, they stood hand in hand, knowing that their love, despite the changes, had endured. The fiery, passionate love of their youth had transformed into something deeper, sweeter, more enduring. As they walked together through the old neighborhoods, Sophie realized that love doesn't always end, it evolves. And in that moment, she knew that she and Alex would always be connected, no matter where life took them. Their love, in all its purity and simplicity, had stood the test of time.